Welcome to the Learning Can't Wait podcast, a Full Mind production. At Full Mind, our vision is to ensure every child has access to an exceptional education. Each episode, we will be joined by pathfinders within and around the education space who are bringing about transformational change on behalf of deserving students. I am your host, Haley Spierabauer. Welcome back to the Learning Can't Wait podcast, everybody. I am thrilled to introduce today's panel of AI superintendents, three incredible leaders from right here on Long Island, where I live, who are doing important work in their communities to build sustainable pathways for students and community members and staff to learn about AI and really get themselves ready for the future. So first up, we have Dr. Kusum Sinha, the superintendent of Garden City Public Schools. Welcome, Dr. Sinha.
Thank you. Thank you for having us today.
Thank you for coming. We also have Dr. Matt Gaven, the superintendent of Rockville Center Public Schools. Welcome, Dr. Gaven.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
And last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Jared Bloom from the superintendent of Franklin Square School District. Welcome, Dr. Bloom.
Thank you so much, Haley.
No, thank you for convening this group of incredible leaders. I feel honored to be able to spend time with you three today. We're recording this at the end of June, or the middle of June, which, if anybody in New York knows, is a tough time to get leaders together. So thank you, Dr. Bloom, for doing that.
Thanks. I'm excited to be with my friends and colleagues and also with you. So
that is so kind of you to say. I know you three spend a lot of time together, so you already know what the answer to the first question might be, but I ask all of my guests on Learning Can't Wait how they came to be the personal and professional version of themselves. So I'm going to ask each of you that same question. You can weave into that how you came to be passionate about emerging technologies or school leadership, whatever feels right to you. I'll start with you, Dr. Sinha. How did you come to be the personal and professional version of yourself?
I've never thought about that question in the way you asked, Haley. So I was like thinking about it. I think, when it comes to what we care about, I think we all do. We care about public education. We care about kids. And I think that's just part of who we are, I think professionally, but then also personally in terms of in that way. And then with technology, I have always been interested in technology. I think even before I came into education, and I think technology has been a big driver for me. I know even when I was going to school, even prior to this job, I remember getting my first computer because I didn't want to be typing. You guys may not remember, but I remember typing papers on typewriters. And I was like, oh my goodness, look at this new thing, this computer. This could save us, and save all this time. So I think that has always been something that I think all three of us really share a passion for. What can we do better? How can we have more, opportunities for kids, but then also for productivity? Like, how can we do more and save time?
Yeah, continuous improvement mindset is always important. I hear it from a lot of our incredible leaders on the Learning Can't Wait podcast. And I recognize both your desire, Dr. Sinha, to meet students' needs and exceed expectations, but also just have more time. Resources, it's a limited resource, so I appreciate that. Dr. Gaven, same question for you. How did you come to be the personal and professional version of yourself?
I think I've been shaped by the people around me, whether that's been a professional colleague, a mentor, my other two colleagues right here on this podcast, my family, all the way through. I think it's the relationships you build, and that helps you become not only your best personal self, but also your best professional self. Watching people do the job the right way, I think is also really important to see, how people can do these challenging jobs and do it the right way. And like Dr. Sinha said, still really, focus on what's right for kids. And when I think about my own journey in school, I love being in school. I loved it so much I stayed. So, for me, that I just think about all the people that had such a positive role, impact on my life and helped me get to where I am today. So that's kind of what I think about. And you don't have to call me doctor. I'm just a mister. So just clarifying for the record, My grandmother right now is mad at me because I never finished it, but I am clarifying.
Okay, thank you for doing that. I appreciate it, Mr.
No
Gavin.
problem. Matt's fine, by the way. Matt's great.
Matt, okay. Well,
Perfect.
and you know you talked a little bit about relationships, and one of the topics we'll touch on today is the importance of having buy-in from the community as you implement significant change and change management. And so I think that'll be something that will come up later as we discuss bringing new things into a school district and really ensuring that folks are on board and understanding of what you're trying to achieve. And relationships play a huge part in that. And Jared, Dr. Bloom, same question for you. How did you come to be the personal and professional version of yourself?
But when I think back, I certainly starts with family, right? I started at 12 years old, working. I was opening a store, and that kind of builds a lot of kind of who you are, right? And then, I was in the dot-com industry prior to going into education, and I think that really excited me. And create an excitement around the world of technology and how I could use it with students and then with teachers and also then with administrators. And just over the last couple of years, especially with AI, just trying to figure out how can we meet kids where they're at. I think the most exciting thing for me over the last couple of years, and the reason why AI kind of has been this light, is for the first time in 20 plus years of doing this, we have a tool that can personalize learning for every student in a way that we've never had before. And if we can harness that with our administrators and with our teachers and with superintendents around the nation, we really can have an incredible education system, even better than what we have now. And we do have a phenomenal education system. But what more can we do if we can personalize learning for every child?
In thinking about the diverse needs of students, that is absolutely one of the more common benefits of having AI in schools and communities and making learning real for every student and meet them where they are. You know, Jared, I'm going to stay with you for a second because you all have this united passion and clear vision for the introduction of artificial intelligence and the implementation of artificial intelligence and other emergent technologies in your communities. But as they say in Avengers, assemble. How did you three assemble? How did you find each other? And what are you doing together that is making an impact, not just in your own communities, but other communities as well?
So we started talking about a presentation, has to be 2+ years ago
Yeah, 2
now,
years, yeah.
for the Nassau superintendents, which is 52 superintendents in Nassau County, as part of a PD day that we were putting together, or that was being put together. And we just gelled so well together as a result of putting on that presentation, and enjoyed the process so much that we just said, let's continue this. Let's meet every Monday. And so for the most part, we don't miss a Monday, including a lot of vacations. We tend to come together. Sometimes it's not AI. Sometimes there are other topics that come up, but we're always talking about how can we do more, not only for our own communities, but how can we help others to become more comfortable with this technology. And it's just been a wonderful opportunity. And so we've traveled to New York City to present together, upstate, and really had the opportunity to write an article together. We're working on a book chapter. It's been a really wonderful experience, and two great friends and colleagues that, have a lot of trust and really enjoy.
You know, a lot of superintendents say it's a lonely job, but it seems as though you all have found a really nice way to work together and make it a little bit less lonely. So I love that. Kusum, I'm curious because obviously when we talk about introducing when we talk about AI shaping the future of education, everybody might have a different philosophy. What's the philosophy that you take for Garden City, and how is that shaping the way your community thinks and implements and appreciates AI?
So I think, when I think about how fast AI is the impact of that on our communities. And it's like, I don't think it touches pretty much everything, I believe, AI. So I do think it's extremely important to introduce children on what is AI and how do you use it responsibly. And I think that to me is probably the most important piece, because it's not so much you don't teach them, you say don't, you have to. And I think most of us, even in our districts, we have an AI platform that we use. We teach kids how to use it responsibly. And I think any emerging technologies, it touches, I think everybody in our communities. And how is it that we're preparing these kids for the future? So I think our philosophy in our district is anything that is coming up that we believe very strongly that kids should know, it's our responsibility to be able to introduce them to such technologies or whatever it may be, and make sure that they're prepared. So when they leave us, that they have the necessary tools that they need. And in conjunction with that is making sure our staff, that they are equipped as well, because I think that's another important aspect of the work that we do. So that's been our take on AI.
So it's not, I'm assuming in your district, and I'll move to you next, Matt. It's not no one can use any AI tools. We don't use ChatGPT. Perplexity's off limits. That's not what we're talking about, right?
No, not at all. It is, how do you bring more tools? I mean, I love the fact, like oftentimes Jared or Matt, they will text, they'll say, hey, did you check this out? And it's another tool that we're always kind of looking at what will make our, it's exciting actually, like to see what else is out there and how else can it support us in our work, but then also our students. So I think it's always exciting. And I love that about our group. We're always sharing new tools and ideas with one another.
Can I just add one thing, Haley? And we as a group have talked about this a number of times. If we don't provide that training to our students, we're going to end up exactly where we landed with social media. And so while I understand, and we understand why some schools may be taking it slow or limiting, if we're not dipping our toes in, and we're obviously doing more than that, but if you're not at this point, students are going to use it. And then they don't have the training and support. And when they don't have the training and support, that's when you run into challenges. And so we feel strongly that we need to do better as a state and as a country in making sure that students and parents have the support that they need to be better users of the technology.
Jared, you bring up a really good point. And Matt, I'm curious because you're talking about, let's hear your perspective here on middle school and high school, really helping students to responsibly use tools. So how do you balance innovation with that level of responsibility when introducing tools in your community?
I think you have to be somewhat comfortable with some ambiguity. And I think you have to have some teachers and some building administrators that are also comfortable with a certain level of ambiguity. For example, the first time you try a tool, there might be, like wow, I didn't know it could do that, like an unintended outcome. And I think as you plan for that, I think you have to understand that, hey, this is something we're trying to get done. We don't know exactly how it's going to go because the tools keep evolving so fast. I think both my colleagues spoke to the speed. Since we first started talking about this 2 years ago, I mean, it's improved by like a factor of 1,000. From like the first ChatGPT in November of 2022 to now, it's evolving and moving so fast that I think we need to have an understanding, and we need to have educational leaders with an understanding about the impact and potential impacts that are going to happen throughout K-12 education as a whole. Not even mentioning what's happening at the college level, because I think that's going to change as well. But I think our philosophy at the middle school and high school is to give the students opportunities to practice the tool, to use the tool in ways that are not only engaging, but also, can illuminate how the tool can be used. So, for example, we have a class at the middle school called Inquiry in the Age of Artificial Intelligence. So we're an international baccalaureate school. at both the middle school and the high school. And part of a big focus of that is inquiry. And so what does inquiry look like in a time when you're going to have these incredible access to information, and not only information, but in a way to distill this information in a new way? So asking great questions, I think, is going to be probably the greatest skill we're going to need to see in the next 10 to 20 years in schools. And we need to foster that ability to inquire and in our students, and also just ask great questions about this super powerful tool that we all have.
It's a really good, like, fine point and detail level view of how we're thinking about this in middle school and high school. And I appreciate that. Jared, you're on a different playing field here because Franklin Square is focused on elementary school. So talk to us a little bit about what does it look like and sound like and feel like in your community?
So it looks similar to the way that it would look in a middle school, certainly in the sense that we are giving students access to Chat for Schools, which is a safe environment where they can test out the use of AI, where it's looking at certainly what they're writing and will alert us to any concerns. And teachers have the ability to make adjustments to how they can use it. I walked into the library recently, and the librarian and one of our teachers, they were working on a project where teachers were quote unquote interviewing characters and nonfiction, individuals as part of a research project, and then they had to double check the work, right? They had to make sure that the information that they were getting from the AI was accurate, and that is a critical skill that you would want students to be able to do, because we do know that AI can hallucinate. But then we're also using the AI with our teachers, right? And having them use tools that can allow them to change the lexile level of a passage, or shorten a passage, or help to generate questions based on interest. These are things that we know make a difference for kids, both their motivation and it also helps with moving them along in terms of, I'm going to just change what I was going to say. I
Yeah,
apologize.
see it again. All good.
Certainly, we know that when teachers have the ability to make adjustments for kids using this technology, kids will excel.
It goes back to your comment earlier about personalization and differentiation.
Yeah.
The application of using AI to lower a lexile level or change a lexile level allows teachers to be able to help every single student exactly where they are, right in their zone of proximal development versus well beyond or well below it. So I think that's such a good use case you named.
I think, one of the other things that Jared talked about was, at the elementary level, we're trying to get kids to create their own uses for artificial intelligence. So like the idea of how do you make your own GPT to solve a problem or to address a need? And I think that at the elementary level, at the high school level, at the middle school level, you're seeing all of these really exciting like use cases that the kids are developing. Um, one of my we have a prompt engineering class at the high school, and they're developing use cases for how to solve problems in a local context. And I think that's going to be a key job skill because it's going to be everywhere. I don't see any job that's not going to be impacted by this. And so you have to be familiar with what the tool can do, what it can't do, and what it should do. And I think if you've got all three of those pieces put in place, you have a pretty good, philosophical background to use this and use it the right way.
No, that's absolutely on point. I appreciate that insight. And again, another use case you gave. Now, Kusum, I know that you are particularly passionate about how we bring educators in the fold and ensuring that they are equipped and comfortable so that they can use it with their students. Talk to me a little bit about what you have set up as the way we're going to get buy-in, establish competency, and really bring your teachers and leaders to the forefront of this AI conversation?
So, for us, we really always start with our administrators to make sure that they have a sound understanding of the tools and that they're also using it and modeling it. So when AI first came out, that's where we started. I think it was November, the Chat GPT came out in January. We were training our administrators. So we hold training sessions throughout the year. So that's for the admins. But then for our teachers, we really started small and started offering some professional development. And if you have good people that are presenting to your teachers and you show them, here are one or two takeaways that you can go back tomorrow and use. And that's how we started. And I honestly, we're very fortunate here as Matt and Jared are in their districts. We have amazing folks that deliver professional development or staff development. They are amazing. And they do, they've made it such that people just show up. So, we have some basic things that we'll say in every single building. Here's some items we want everybody to learn. How do we go about it? It's our staff developers and our administrators. And we have two in our technology department, along with our director of technology and innovation. They are so creative in providing these professional development. And we do them, believe it or not, in person, but a lot of them we offer virtually. And they're engaging. I mean, I've hopped on to a couple of those ones that they do in the evenings, which we call pajama PDs. And they show up. I mean, sometimes there's over 100 people logged on, and they're learning at 7 o'clock in the evening. And again, it's not because they want to. They show up and they are learning, they ask questions. And then our staff developers will follow up and do individual coaching sessions or group coaching sessions. And then we've also, in our district, we have Magic School, which is an AI platform that we're using. There are various different platforms, but they are seeing the benefits of some of these tools that we've introduced them to. So it's this continually kind of getting feedback from teachers, understanding what their needs are, and then delivering. And I think our folks have done a great job with that. Not me, but our administrators and our staff developers. They're really incredible.
I love that term, pajama PD. It's clever, but probably very apt for how, busy educators are at the end of the day. Every time I talk to Jared, he tells me about some exciting new tool that I didn't know about. Anyone can open it up to the floor here. I'm opening it up for everyone. What's something that you tried recently that you're really excited about using yourself or implementing in your community?
Oh, that's a lot. That's a hard one. There are
Yeah.
new ones,
There's
and
so
I feel
many.
like there are like 5 new ones a day.
I know.
For me, I think that the thing that changed my perspective on things was Notebook LM.
Yeah.
Mm.
For me, Notebook LM was mind-blowing because you're basically making your own little large language model on the material you wish to learn about. And I thought about how many different ways we had to study back in the day, and I thought about my own students, my own kids at college, and how they can study now and interact with a podcast that's basically on your course material.
Mm.
I thought that was incredibly, incredibly innovative and intuitive, and to me, that was the one. That was the one that kind of blew me away and hooked me.
I have
Mm.
to say the same, Matt, for me. And just the other day, because the Notebook LM, I had a parent in my office, and I was actually showing the parent how they could use that because children nowadays, it's an interesting thing. I ask kids all the time. So, how much did you read? How much did you read today? And I think their ability to sustain that long duration of reading, or even the materials that they need, you can put it in the Notebook LM, and it gives them that conversational podcast style. Anything you put in there, you can learn, and it's engaging. It's so engaging. So I was actually just showing that to a parent, and for me too, Google Notebook LM I use that very, very frequently, along
Yeah.
with the Chat GPT. I use that too pretty frequently.
And we use Notebook LM as well, and I personally use it, but I'll add one more, which just came out in the last couple of, I guess, hours, probably one day old, but it's just the new advanced voice features from ChatGPT, which now make it even more lifelike than it was before. And so having a conversation or translating a dialogue between two people has become so natural. And as a thinking partner, it's just a wonderful tool to have, or as a translator, it's a wonderful tool to have. So these are tools that I think are just make our lives better, right? They're not going to replace, they're just going to enhance what we're doing. And that's what we want.
It's so exciting. I think about what you're sharing here, and I think about my days when I was in schools and leading schools, and I can't even imagine. We had so many beautiful languages spoken in our community, and it was always difficult to find the proper translation and interpreting services. And even that one use case is incredible. So let's talk a little bit, because obviously, if we're going to be talking about embracing AI, we need to think as well about data privacy, bias, and ethical concerns around AI. So, what are some of the biggest concerns that get raised in your community, and how are you addressing them? I'll have anyone who's ready to jump in on that one can jump in.
I think initially it was like, are kids going to be using it to copy and all? But
Right.
we really have not seen that. I think I know for us, we introduced it so early. We really didn't have a whole lot of major issues either from staff or our community. But I think some of the ethical consideration, I think that's something you always keep coming back to with any new tools, like the right versus wrong, and the ways you use those tools. And I think, Jared, you were talking earlier about the more we're equipped, just like with social media, we kind of like miss that a little bit. Here we're so ahead of it that I think any of those things that come up, I think we address it even before it becomes an issue. But we haven't seen major, in Garden City for sure, we have not seen a major issue around that for us.
I think for us, I think it was, that the hesitancy from people is the fear of the unknown and how this is going to play out. I think even in any community, you are seeing a level of economic anxiety with artificial intelligence. So whether your students are, your kids are graduating from college and you see that some entry level jobs aren't as hired as frequently as they were in the past, I think that's been some of the things that we've seen. I've had conversations with parents as well about that. The cheating piece was a concern of our faculty. There's no doubt about it. I don't see, I mean, the first time you see the word delve and embark, all of our faculty just sits there and says, delve and embark. Okay. That's something that's very, very prominent in terms of ChatGPT type essays. So, we have seen that component as well. To a lesser extent, I think part of the way we headed that off was working with the teachers on what are the things you can look for if you need to, but at the same time, how do you use the tool appropriately? And letting our own teachers have the chance again to use the tool as a way to brainstorm it, to think more clearly, not necessarily replace your thinking. And I think that's the key thing, is that we have to make sure that for our students, we use the tool to help them be more creative, to solve problems, but not replace who they are and who they're eventually gonna become.
Yeah, I'll just make 2 points. One, I tell this story from time to time. There's a famous book, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And in the book, there's a teacher, right? And the teacher is giving a test. And the students are pressuring Margaret not to put her name on the test. And at the end of the day, none of them put their names on the test. And yet the next day, all of their tests appear on the right desk in front of the students. And why is that? It's because the teacher knows their kid, right? They know the kids.
Yes.
So we have to know our kids, and we have to understand who they are as writers and who they are as thinkers, and that will help us to move this work forward. The other point I'll just make is, in terms of Ed Law 2D, obviously it's a really serious thing, and we have to make sure that our teachers and administrators and students have protections in place to make sure that personally identifiable information is not shared via the systems. And so some of the tools that we use that are Ed Law 2D compliant have kind of built in precautions, so that if a student were to put a name in, it kind of stops them from submitting. But then also, again, it's just constant PD and reminders about the use of these tools and also the laws. And I think if we do that, we're going to be okay. And we're going to be able to move this work forward. I do think at one point, we're going to see a lot of these LLMs living in the district on district servers, and it's not going to be an issue. But as it stands right now, we don't have our own LLMs, so we have to just make sure that we are doing the best we can, and the best we can means not submitting PII at all.
I think
Yeah,
our
I think that
partners are set up that way. Like we have a bunch of different, all of us use different solutions in each one of our districts about how we do that. But I think that's one of the things that our partners are at least thinking along those lines, right? So they understand what Jared's talking about in terms of sharing PII, and they've worked really well to control for that. And I think allowing us to experiment in a safe environment is really liberating.
Yeah, I love the way that you all speak about the caution, but not letting the caution supersede the excitement and the kind of advancements that the technology allows for. When I think about the processes that we have to use to ensure that the tools we're selecting are secure and ethical. You obviously named in New York, we have Ed Law 2D. I'm curious if there are any other governance or review processes your districts use to what they use. I know there are. Every district has their own in order to evaluate tools before scaling them. Can one of you talk through this for our listeners that maybe don't have an established governance board or review policy process?
Well, right now we all have an acceptable use policy, right, for how technology is used, and originally everyone was worried about rushing to write an AI specific policy, and we found that a lot of our concerns were alleviated by our current acceptable use policy that our students and teachers already have. So it's about how do you use the tool appropriately? What are the things you should not be using it for? And those are all pretty outlined, whether or not you're using AI or the internet in general. So we were pretty lucky with that. That again, our acceptable use policy really covered a wide majority of what the potential issues were. We're still looking at, and we're still going to develop, and I think New York is thinking about this as a whole, as like an entire AI in education K-12 policy. And I think the three of us are involved with our superintendent's organization's efforts to try to plan to do this collectively and to do it in a way that's collaborative, along with like our legislature, our governor, our SUNY system. And that's some of the work that we're going to be doing this summer.
And I think some of the other ways that we look at tools is starting small, right? Do we have a group of teachers who can try it out, who can work with our directors of technology, who can work with our coaches, and to see whether it's going to be a fit? And then what tends to happen if the tool is the right fit is other people say, I want that. How do I get that?
Yeah.
Right? And it starts to grow. And then you can look at whether you're going to do a district adoption of a particular tool or it's going to live in a smaller environment, right? Sometimes you can have a tool that just lives in a certain department or a certain grade level, and other tools are going to be more whole, right, institution. And so things like, Notebook LM, or which is not for students right now, but or tools like Chat for Schools, which we're using for all of our students. So again, it really is going to depend on the particular tool, but we try to start with our tech mentors and our teachers who are looking to test out new things and then grow it from there organically.
So for us, we started looking at our own policies, and one of the things with the acceptable use, we're changing it to responsible use because there's so many different tools out there. And we do the same thing what Jared was talking about. Once you introduce it in small, or see who are those early adopters who want to really try something new, we have them throughout our districts. And once they start using a tool, they tell you the good and bad and the ugly with it, because they're eager, they're partners with you with any of these new tools. So that's kind of actually exciting. Just like we get excited, the three of us, when we're sharing different resources, our teachers do the same. So yeah, I think we didn't jump. None of us really jumped into a policy piece right away, because we were kind of seeing where this is taking us. And hopefully in New York, we'll have a toolkit for all of us, soon.
I appreciate the measured approach. We're ready for our final question, and I'm going to tweak my typical question and ask you, since you three are superintendents leading the way with AI development, implementation, guidelines, all of the pieces we've covered on this podcast episode here today, I'm wondering what advice you would give to a superintendent who is just starting to dip their toes in the water, what you might share with them. And I'm going to go backwards here. I'll start with Jared. We started with Kusum before. So Jared, you're going to go first, please.
If I were going to give advice, I would say just start playing with the tools, and just understand that we are preparing kids for their tomorrow, not ours. And so it's really important that we are providing them with access. Obviously, we have to make sure that we are protecting them, that we are providing the resources and education on how to use it responsibly. But just try to use some of the tools, get some of your teachers to start using the tools, get your administrators to use some of the tools. I can guarantee you, once teachers and administrators see that it's going to save them nights and weekends, and it doesn't mean replacing teachers, by the way. It doesn't mean replacing administrators. What it means is it gives them more face time with kids, and it gives the kids a more responsible approach to this work. And so let's prepare kids for their tomorrow, not ours.
I think for me, if we were going to, be talking to a superintendent new to this process, I would say there are models out there that are working, and that, do your own research, do your own homework, and reach out to people. I think one of the strength of our partnership, the three of our collective partnership, is whenever we see something new or we have a question with each other, not necessarily AI, we reach out. There'll be a text message, or there'll be a quick phone call, or when we meet Mondays, we constantly push each other. And that's the way you learn and grow, is when you have colleagues that like support you and can tell you, hey, by the way, I don't know if that one's the best idea, but let's talk that through. They can be, critical friends and give you a good perspective on whether or not the things that you're doing are ultimately going to be good for kids. And I think the three of us are really grounded in that way. And I think any new superintendent to this work would, I'm going to make that assumption they're going to be grounded in that way, that they want to do great things for kids. And there are other people out there that you can learn from. You had mentioned before that the superintendency is a lonely job, and it can be, but not when you have great colleagues, and not when you have the people that we have on this call that are willing to turn around and learn new things and be lifelong learners and be relentless advocates for kids and teachers. I think that's the other component about this, is that you need to have your faculty. You need to know your faculty about who can run with this. Like Jared talked about this before. I say things like, I need the rabbits to run, like the people that normally, get out ahead of the pack and they need to go run. And you need to know who those people are, and then you need to invite them in regularly and have a dialogue. And I think that dialogue can start at the colleague level with fellow superintendents and people that are already engaged in this work, but it also needs to happen in-house with the people that you're going to ultimately ask to do the work for you.
Amazing.
And I would echo what Matt and Jared just said around, that we are preparing our children for their future and finding the right people to go to, because I think any of these tools that you have, any emerging new things in education, we're constant learners. We are always learning as leaders, and we expect that of our staff. We expect that of ourselves and our students. And if we don't take that opportunity and to seek, it's hard. Some of these, especially technology, for some of us, it's easier than other people. It's like, oh my goodness, this is so difficult. But yeah, you sort of have to. And I think finding good people, and I would also say within education, but even outside of education, because if you look at things like, I go back to the World Economic Forum report and the skills that our kids they need for the future. Go back to like things that could ground us, because there's always a purpose. And it's not so much, oh, what is the next hype or the tool, but what is what is the purpose of what we're doing in education and getting our students prepared for the future. So it's finding the right people and playing around with these, whatever is out there, learn it. So you're informed in helping your staff with the work that needs to get done in schools.
You three are such beacons. Listening to you share about how you're working in your communities, thinking about it in your communities, preparing students for the future that we don't even know what it looks like yet. It's so exciting to listen to. And I'm really grateful that you three came and shared insight into your communities, both the tactical and the vision, because I think that we're in a rapidly evolving world. As a couple of you shared today, the tools are changing every minute. So thanks for grounding us in how we can get started, how we can think about it, and continue to get buy-in from your communities. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Haley.
And thank you to everyone for tuning in today. Thanks for listening to the Learning Can't Wait podcast. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and share this episode. Be the first to know when we have a new episode by subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or have a suggestion for an episode, email us at podcast@fullmindlearning.com.